There we go. To invite Jenni Weldin from Safe Environment to talk to us about what's expected and anything that she needs to have you guys know about as far as Virtuous for Children come the fall for this next sessions, or this session for the fall sessions going into this year. So Jenni, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time. I know you've talked to a lot of the youth ministers already, so now we're going to expand that to all our other PCLs. So I will give you the floor.
Wonderful. Can everybody hear me? Yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank you all so much for allowing me the time to speak with all of you about children's training for the 21-22 school year. So the first thing that I want to make sure everybody understands is that children's training is for every single year, kindergarten through 12th grade. Many years ago, when we first started this back in 2014, it was not an every year event. It was about every 2 or 3 years this happened. Prior to my starting with the Archdiocese of Atlanta, we moved though to having this every single year. So a child should receive a Virtues lesson every single year, kindergarten through 12th grade. The second thing that I want to mention is it's truly best practice to have the Virtues session included in a regular session. The reason that that is so important is because that way we can ensure the most children are receiving the material. When parishes schedule a separate session, we all know that attendance at those is low because that's one more thing that parents are trying to get their kids to, and it's not within their normal, schedule for a family. And so it's very important to try the best you can to include that Virtues lesson in a regularly scheduled session. It's important to communicate to parents that this session is going to be taking place. The reason that it's important to communicate with parents is because parents do have the opportunity to opt their children out of receiving the Virtues lesson. We moved last year to just a pure opt-out form. And the reason we moved to that is because all safe environment paperwork per archives has to be kept for 50 years. So whatever papers were collected for students in the Virtues lessons, they all had to be kept for 50 years. It's much easier to keep an opt-out form versus having a permission form that you would have to keep. Now, that also being said, I know a lot of parishes include this information in their registration. That is great. That's totally fine. We're not saying that you need to do it differently. What I am saying though is you need to have if you have it in registration and it all comes into an Excel spreadsheet, okay, there needs to be some way for which you are able to pull out only the Virtues information, whether the parent said yes or no about Virtues, and save that in some type of PDF format. You can copy and paste it and delete all of the other columns other than whether parents said yes or no, and then save that workbook as a PDF. But that you do need to keep that information for 50 years. When USCCB comes and audits, they audit different locations, and that is something that they ask for when they come to do the audit. Are there any questions about opt-out forms or having to keep that information? Okay, I'll take more questions at the end. The other thing I want everybody to know is when we started this with the children back in 2014, at that point in time, we did have a lot of parents opting out of the program. Every single year we see those opt-outs decline. I think parents are much more used to it. I think that parents are welcoming the opportunity for help in these difficult conversations, but those numbers do continue to decrease over time. So for the 2021-2022 school year, the lessons that you will be doing with your students in religious education are combined lesson 5 and 6, okay? So the schools do 2 separate lessons, one in the fall, one in the spring. We know that y'all see your kids anywhere from 20 to 30, averages probably about 23 times a year. So that's why we have the combined lessons. Benny, if I could share my screen, that would be awesome, because I can show everybody exactly where everything is on the platform. If you do not have access to the Virtues Educator tab, which I'm going to show you, please email Gina Garcia, and I'll put her email in the chat in just a minute, and she will give you the rights to have the Educator tab if you don't already have that. Okay, so here we go. This is the Educator tab. The first thing that I want to just remind everybody is these intro videos are all on the sidebar. When you click on the intro video, it'll open up the video to play right there. Y'all, if you have in your possession a notebook with children's materials in it that has old DVDs or old videos or old paperwork, please recycle all of that. Every single thing has been updated, and so you do not need those notebooks anymore, because everything that you need can be found online. So the first thing is the video, and the videos were updated last year, and we have gotten good feedback about the intro videos. The next piece is what you're going to look for is you're going to look for combined lesson plans, which is right below the videos. When you click on that, it's going to give you all of the combined lesson plans. So in the past, y'all have had to look at, let's say you're doing, you were doing lesson 3 and 4 last year, and you had to look at both of those lesson plans and then come up with a combined lesson plan because you were only going to meet with the kids once. Virtues has now provided a combined lesson plan for each grade band, both in English and in Spanish. And so all you have to do is click on the link, and it will open that lesson plan up for you. The one thing I want to say about these lesson plans, you don't have to do every single activity in the lesson plan. We don't expect that. We expect you to read it, to go over the main materials, and then pick an activity or 2 activities. In these lesson plans, there's generally 4 to 5 activities. You don't need to do all of those activities with your students. Okay, so that is where the lesson plans, let me make sure. Okay, so the reason too that it's important that everybody in the Archdiocese is doing lesson 5 and 6. I talked with somebody at a parish yesterday, and they said, well, last year we didn't get everything done that we needed to get done, and so we were going to finish up what we didn't do last year. We're going to let last year go and every other year go. That's okay. What we're going to do is we're going to just move forward with the combined lesson 5 and 6. The reason this is important is because that way, if kids are moving from parish to parish, they're on the same cycle, and everybody is getting the same information regardless of where where their family is registered. And it also ensures that they're getting the 3-year cycle of, this year's 5 and 6, next year will be 1 and 2, the following year will be 3 and 4. Okay. Now, in regard to recording training, there is right here, it says record training. And then why you have to double click and add a new training record, I'm not totally sure, but we do. This will default to the program name, and it will default to your location. Your school type, you're just going to do religious education or youth ministry, depending on what you're doing. When the training was conducted, who conducted the training. Now, in elementary programs, that probably looks different than it does in maybe middle or high school programs. If the catechist is doing the training in their regular religious education class, you're going to need to do entries for that. You then select the age range of the students, and then your lesson number is going to be 5 and 6, and then what language you did the lesson in. Now, this next part, number of children trained, those are the kids that were present and were trained. The next one is number of children who were opted out. So if their parents opted them out of the program, that's where you'd put that number. And then the number of children absent, and then you would put that. Y'all, children trained, opted out, and absent, that total of those 3 numbers should equal the number of students either in the specific religious education class and ultimately the number of children registered in your religious education program for everybody. And so, because when I look at the data, I can total up the numbers, and that number should equal the number of kids that you have registered. The reason that this information is important is because every single year we are required, per the charter for protection of children and young people, to send this information into the USCCB every year. So that's why it's so important that y'all are recording this training so that we have this information that we can submit to the USCCB. So that is, okay, so what questions do you have for me?
There's a couple questions on the chat.
Okay.
One is that there is something about the Families Forming Disciples program. I know, Elaine, you had mentioned on the chat that there is a family dynamic to these programs. If you want to address that first, please.
So Jenny, on the left side of that educators, there is something that says parent-specific lesson plan instructions. I believe that is, if that is what this person is looking for.
Okay, so Benny, if I can share one more time, we'll open that up.
Yep, you can still share.
Oh, I can? Perfect, thank you. Okay, so parent-specific lesson plans. So yes, this is, if you click on this link, it gives you the lesson plan. The issue with this is it's only lesson one.
Yeah.
They have not, oh, I'm muted.
We can hear you, Jenny.
Okay, all right. So they don't have all lessons available. They only have this lesson one available. I've been working with Virtus to try to get them to do all of them all the way out, but we just haven't gotten there yet. But if you're having the parents do these lessons with their children, then when you record the training, you just put lesson one in.
And I think part of it is also for our parishes that are using Families Forming Disciples, and Andy, we'll have to delve into this probably a little more clearly, that since this is something that they're doing as family groups, either in person or depending on the situation as a hybrid at home through a Zoom type of lesson, we're going to integrate that into a true family catechesis. So we have to talk a little bit more about that too. There's also a question about what lessons, if you could go back over that, what we have to work on lessons 5 and 6 this year. If we did 1 and 2 last year at the parish, it doesn't matter. We skip 3 and 4 and do 5 and 6 was the question?
Yes, yeah, just skip 3 and 4 completely and just move on to 5 and 6. That's totally fine.
And then another question, can we create a panel-led lesson plan for combined 5 and 6?
I don't know that I understand the question.
Yeah. Let's see, who is it? Elaine, can you, not Elaine Phillips, Elaine McCollum, can you open up your mic and explain?
Sure. So I guess my question was, lacking a parent-led option provided by Virtus, if I have parents who, for example, are doing an at-home virtual type PSR program where we provided materials for them to do in their homes with their children, those who don't want to come back in person yet, is there an expectation they still have to do Virtus? And can I somehow take your lesson 5, 6 combined and produce my own version of a parent-led session they could do with their children?
That would be beautiful. I would actually love if you would do that. I think that's totally fine because you're using the materials, and I think, frankly, I would like that even better than just using the lesson one, Elaine. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Elaine, if you could share what you do with us so we can share it and put it out to the other PCLs so they know if it's been successful, what were the fruits of that and what were any problems?
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
And
I have a quick question. This is Jillian. I have a question. In the past, what we've done, well, I should say last year, what we did is we took the average age. So we grouped our families for families forming disciples with like age children.
Yes.
And what we did was we showed them, so if they had a 6-year-old and a 11-year-old, we showed them the one for the 6-year-old.
Yes.
But obviously we didn't want to go above the 6-year-old. Is it
Correct.
okay that we do that again this year with our families forming disciples groups?
Yes. Yes, that's totally fine. Totally fine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The biggest thing, y'all, is that the kids are getting this material. It's not, that's what's most important. And really what's great about everybody doing 5 and 6 is it's the same material, just at different levels.
And we have another question about paper virtuous forms have to be scanned electronically and not just keep the paper. Question.
So they can be kept as paper copies. That's totally fine. We have no issue with it being kept in paper copies. There's a lot of people that have been reaching out to me asking, do we have to keep these in paper? Can we save them electronically? So it's really up to you at your parish whether you want to keep the paper forms or whether you want to have an electronic version of those forms.
And then Jillian says there seems to be a problem on the platform when clicking on lesson 5 and 6 for grades 3 to 5, it's pulling up lesson 3.
I will talk to Beatrice about that. Thank you. And that's in the chat. I'm looking right
Yeah,
now.
that's in the
That's on
chat.
the English version.
Okay. English.
Yeah. So it's pulling up 3 and 4 instead of 5 and 6.
Great. Okay.
I checked the others, they're all fine. It's just that.
They will be very glad to know that. Thank you so much for letting me know.
Okay, I'm checking through the chat. I think we have gotten all that had to do with those questions.
So
I
may
do have a question. I'm Victoria from St. Anna's. My question is that, if we keep these electronically, how we're supposed to keep them for 50 years, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so we all know electronically, we're in 10 years and 5 years and even in 4 years, things are going to change. How do we keep that electronically when things are changing so fast, and be able to show our auditor we still have this stuff?
Right. So this is what I've been told by archives. And what Angelique has told me is that if it's saved as a PDF, that's how it needs to be saved. So rather than just saving a Word document, because those things change, or saving as an Excel spreadsheet, because again, those versions change and it might not read the same, to save it as a PDF. And that's actually something too, I used to save emails just as an email document here, but now I'm saving all those as PDFs as well, to make sure that I'm actually able to open them in the future. But, and that's a great question, Victoria. Great question. So may I make one more plug before I turn it back over? You may have seen this already, but we are hiring in our office. The way that our office is currently made up is we have, I do the safe environment piece. Sue Stubbs is the director of victim assistance. And then we have Gina Garcia, who is currently our only program assistant. We are hiring an additional program assistant. And so if you know of someone that you think this would be a good fit for, please encourage them to apply for this position. What I will tell you is I'm a great person to work for, and I have lots of people that can give me recommendations as a boss. So it's a great place, it's a great team, and we're just looking for another person to really add to what we already are offering here. So please spread the word and encourage folks to apply for this position. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, great. And hold on, Kathleen Kelly-Hugh, you have a question?
Was it full-time or part-time?
It is a full-time position.
Okay.
And it is primarily an 8 to 4 position, although there are at times there is some weekend work occasionally, like twice a year.
Great. And I will attest to the fact that Jenni is wonderful to work with. And she's just a delight. And we're so glad that she's on board with everything and that she's so open to sharing everything. And everyone knows that they can easily contact you and get the answers they need, which is awesome. So do we have any more questions before we do? Let's see. No, Jillian, we will get to talking about a recommendation for family forming disciples. So we
And
will get back to
there
it.
was a question on what the due date is on the Virtus for the
Right.
children.
Yes,
So we need to know
I
that.
did not address that. So we have really 2 due dates for the schools. One is October 31st and the other one is February 28th. As long as y'all have it done by February 28th, that's totally fine. I know in years past, the deadline was October 31st. I know that I don't want to say most, I know a lot of parishes like to just check this box very early in the year, and that's great. I'm totally fine with that. But the very end deadline is February 28th. And really it's so that this can all be taken care of before Lent, because we know once Lent arrives, the year's over.
A couple more questions I caught at the end. Are we able to use electronic opt-out form with a digital signature, or do you need an original? That's a very important question.
It is an important question, and Elaine, can you help me out with this one? Because I feel like we go round and round about electronic signatures. My understanding is that it has to be a third party. Maybe you can explain this better than I can.
Yes, so the official word is if you are using electronic signatures, you need to go through a third-party signature company, because what they do is they verify that it's actually the person. If you just send a form home, any kid could just go in there and type their parent's name. So that is the official stance of the Archdiocese, is that if you can use electronic signatures, but you need to go through a third party to get those.
And I don't offhand know of any, I know you will probably all run into this with your own mortgages or anything else you may have done, where it's an e-doc thing that you have to go to a third party on a different
Yeah, like
platform.
DocuSign.
DocuSign, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
I
have
have
a
no
question.
idea. Go ahead.
This is Elaine. So for those of us who are collecting the permissions via a registration form, my registration software is not tied to a third party, so I'm struggling with this because that's the only format that I'm collecting permissions. And I don't want to have to change that.
So the way that I would look at who's opting out, and I would get them to actually fill out the form, because those are really the only forms you need. You don't need the participation form, you only need the opt-out form. And they can still make their decision in the registration form, and maybe when they have to fill out a form, they might change their mind. But yeah, I would send it to those that are opting out to get those paper forms back.
And also, can you go to the individual lesson plans and get 5 and 6?
Can you go to the individual lesson plans and get 5 and 6?
Cindy, can you pull up your mic and explain?
That's what I did. I just went to where the individual lessons are and I pulled up 5 and 6 because the combined 5 and 6 was giving you 3 and 4.
Got it.
So you can still get them. You just have to pull up each lesson individually.
And to verify one more time, Jenni, that all parishes are to be working on 5 and 6 this year, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the answer to that is yes. Anybody else have any questions, thoughts?
Just to make sure I'm understanding, so when it's combined, all that is just in one file instead of us printing 2, so it is exactly the same?
It's not exactly the same, because they know that you're doing one lesson in one period versus 2 lessons in 2 periods. But the material is the same. The basic concepts are the same, if that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Jenni, I have a question. So if we're doing electronic opt-outs and we get the opt-out, can we call the person and ask them to email us to verify they're opting out and just staple that email to the electronic copy we have.
So I'm going to be honest, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's fine. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think anybody is going to jail over opt-out forms, okay? So I just think that we need some sort of documentation. So Victoria, if you want to have them send an email, I think that would be fine.
Okay, this has been awesome. Thank you. Does everybody have any other questions, thoughts? And if you haven't thought of them now, and as soon as we get off this call, you went, oh, if only. Jenny's always, Jenny, if you could put your email back into the chat. We put Gina's in there, so if you could put yours in the chat,
Sure.
that would be great. And we are so grateful for everything you do and your ability to work so well with all of us. And it's just wonderful to know that we can call you and just go, hey, what's going on? We give a straight answer. You get a quick answer. It's awesome. So I thank you for that.
And
So
there was one more question about,
okay.
Does any parish hire someone to come in and do the training? And I am not aware that any parish is doing that. I mean, if y'all know, that would be great. But from just communication I've had with folks, people are just handling that internally. There is also, and I haven't brought this up because there's a lot going on, but there is an online training that we can offer to help train the catechists who are giving this lesson. And again, I can provide more information about that, but again, I don't want to overwhelm. So, but that is a possibility as well.
Is that training on your website, Jenny, or where is that found?
It's on the Virtus platform,
Okay.
and I don't know that we've got it set up. I've been in communication with Virtus about having that as an option and where to put it on our platform, because our platform looks different than every other diocese platform does. So if we do that, we'll just need to figure out how to communicate that out. But it is an option, and if you're interested in seeing that or interested in more information, please email me, and I can set that up so that you can preview that if you're interested in doing that.
It sounds like it'd be helpful.
Okay.
Great.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Jenny, thank you. Any last questions, last chats? Now's your chance, folks. Okay, hearing none. Jenny, you have solved all the problems.
No, there's another question.
There's another question, and I'm glad it was asked.
I missed one.
No, this is actually about adult Virtus. So the question is, why are all the parishes not allowing other parishes to attend their training? I have put the kibosh on that as best as possible. So basically, if somebody wants to, moving forward now, and this started a couple weeks ago, if somebody reaches out to us and wants to have a closed training, they have to have it approved by me. Now, admittedly, there are some that have been on the calendar for a long time, but they have to have it approved by me for it to be a closed session. The other thing that we're doing is we are opening, even if it's a closed session, if there is still space available in that session, we are opening it up 3 days before the session. So even if they wanted it to be a closed session because they wanted all their, ushers to come to that session or whatever it was, if there's still space available, it's open 3 days prior to the session. So this should really help people get into sessions that haven't been able to get into sessions previously. The other piece of this is there are still some parishes that are not offering Virtus sessions at all. And then there are other parishes that are offering a lot. If you have any weight to get these sessions offered at your location, please, 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 please help make that happen. The more sessions we have, the better. We have a lot of sessions on the calendar right now, and I really do feel like we're meeting everybody's needs. But the more sessions we have, the better off we are. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Jenny, because I just had that last night. Someone asked me, why can I cannot get into these sessions because they're all saying they're closed. So thank you for that. That's a great help.
Jenny,
Go
well, I do
ahead.
have a question, because for me, when we do a closed session, I do not want somebody coming in and taking a place for someone of my local that I need my teachers to do. And because we are a small community and I don't have a huge space, I still have to be aware of our distancing and inside and all that. So for St. Anna's, when I asked for a closed session, that's why. It isn't because I don't want to help anybody. It's that, you know, I still have teachers I need to do this for, and I still have to keep up with the distancing and all the
Right.
protocol that we're supposed to do. Are we gonna, is that going to change for us?
The thing about it is, you know, if, like I said, even if I approve a closed session, it's going to open up 3 days before. The biggest thing is all of these people, they need to go ahead and get registered. They can't wait until the last minute. I mean, I did a session last night at St. Thomas More, and we had it set for 30 people, and we ended up opening it up to 35 people. And I had people, you know, that were literally had signed up 2 hours before they showed up for the session. So if there are people that are involved in your programs that have to take the session, then they just really need to get signed up as soon as that session opens. And we'll be in communication with you about when that session's open. And that's when you have to let people know that they've got to get signed up immediately for that session so that they get those spots, because we want those people to have those spots.
But the problem is, it's a lot of my people, they just want to come. They don't want to sign up.
Well, I can't. I can't help that, Victoria. I'm sorry. They're gonna have to sign up. They're gonna have to sign up. 'Cause it's just a lot of folks.
Jenny,
Yes, ma'am.
hey, it's Martha at St. George. So our person who's doing this, reason she's closed it, we actually only have 5 people we're allowing in, including our ECHO student, because her husband is in chemo treatment and they have to be extremely careful of their exposure.
Mhm.
She really didn't even want to do it for 5, but you know, Riley can't do her job unless she has virtues.
Right. Well, so, and one of the things, and I, you know, there's always going to be special circumstances.
So just so you know, that's not going to be opened up because she'll cancel it if you open it up 3 days before.
What I will say is we talked to her and we offered to find a facilitator to do that session for her.
Ooh, awesome. I didn't know
And
that.
she turned us down on it.
Okay, I didn't know all that, but
Yeah.
okay.
So we said, look, we don't think that you should be doing this session at all. And we would love to find a facilitator to do this session for you. So, you know, so if you want to revisit that with her, reach out to us and we can adjust.
Okay, so are you saying that it is going to be opened 3 days before?
Well,
That's what I'm asking.
I don't want to get into specific, I mean.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but also please feel free
I just need to be sure that Riley is covered before September 12th.
Sure.
That's all. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have one last question by Judy Hornbeck. If you can look at the chat, Jenny,
Okay.
About being virtuous trained for senior ministry.
Okay.
And what are the guidelines for that?
This is a difficult one.
Mhm.
So seniors, so the short answer is yes, they should be virtues trained. And the reason is because seniors are considered vulnerable individuals. Okay. So, and again, the definition, unfortunately, what would be awesome is if the USCCB would give us a very specific definition of vulnerable individual, which they have not yet provided us. We keep hoping that will happen, but it hasn't happened. But seniors as a group are considered vulnerable individuals. So yes, they do need to be safe environment compliant.
Great, good questions. And thank you for clarifying everything for us, Jenny. Okay, guys, anything else? We want to give this opportunity to you now that you have it. Please take advantage of it. Last chance, last call.
I have
Julie?
one more quick question. Is there any talks in the works about putting together a virtues session that targets just vulnerable adults, who speaks more on vulnerable adults versus what we currently have, where it's all based on children with small plugs for adults, for our vulnerable?
Right. So the answer right now is no. What I will tell you is very helpful is, and the reason I say no is because we're currently using Virtues version 3.5 for our Protecting God's Children. Virtues 4.0 is just getting ready to be released. I'm actually headed to Chicago for the Virtues conference at the beginning of September. And we are going to be training all our current facilitators on 4.0. If you have a group of individuals for which the majority of those are serving vulnerable individuals, letting the facilitator know that in advance so that the facilitator can address specific things in regard to vulnerable individuals is very, very helpful. The other piece of this is just an overarching thing. All of the same things that we are looking for in regard to predators and grooming, they're the same things that we're looking for and we're on the lookout for in regard to people working with vulnerable individuals. It really, those characteristics really don't change. I've done a lot of reading on this and a lot of research on trying to make sure that we're covering both of these groups, and it mirrors each other very, very well. What I don't think that we do as facilitators in this session is we don't explicitly address that in our sessions the way that we need to be doing that. And I will be talking about that as we do the Virtues 4.0 training of our facilitators. That is one thing that I'll be addressing with them as well. But again, if you've got a session that is primarily made up of people, like I did a session one time at a parish and it was all St. Vincent de Paul food pantry people, right? And it's just very good to know the audience that you're speaking to prior to.
Great,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Jenny, that Virtues 4.0, when you do the facilitators, is that going to be a full weekend like when we did the regular Virtues when we facilitated?
The 4.0, when we do that, it'll be about a day. It's not going to be a 2-day thing, but it will be a day. And I haven't scheduled those sessions yet because I want to actually go to the Virtues conference and hear directly from them. And then once I get back, so it's probably, I said initially that they would be in September. It looks like it's actually going to be in October. But I'm also I'm trying to hit different deaneries so that people aren't all having to drive to the chancery. Because I know that people are coming from a far way away, and I want to make it as convenient for people as possible. So there'll be multiple sessions in multiple deaneries.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So anybody else? Last call. Okay, Jenny, go ahead, Jenny.
Sorry. I will be sending out, this is something that frankly I got dinged on with our in-person audit this year, which is why this is happening. So I will be sending out in January basically a form that you're going to need to fill out, and you're going to need to have your pastor sign that says that this is taking place at your parish. I'll send it out in January and it'll be due back in March, but expect that to come in January. Thank you.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. So as we are at 10 till the hour, there were some questions at the beginning. Jenny, thank you again so much.